This morning I woke up to 29 missed calls from a number somewhere in Illinois. I stood frozen in my kitchen, coffee turning cold in my mug, just staring at the screen. Deep down, before I even listened to the first voicemail, I already knew who it was. Some memories don't fade away. They wait in the dark, quiet corners of your life, until one ordinary day they rise up and drag you straight back. My name is Emma Thompson now. I'm 32, a graphic designer living in Denver, Colorado. I have a husband who makes me feel safe, a rescue dog that follows me everywhere, and a small studio where I create branding for small businesses. On most days, the life I built feels solid and peaceful. But those missed calls pulled me right back to being a scared 12-year-old girl, standing completely alone inside Chicago's Union Station, watching the two people who were supposed to love and protect me turn my fear into their own sick entertainment. It didn't start with that day at the station. The problems were there long before. From the outside, my childhood family looked normal and respectable. My parents owned a small chain of home goods and hardware shops in a quiet town outside Chicago. Neighbors saw my dad grilling on weekends and my mom chatting over the fence. Everyone thought we were a solid, hardworking family. But inside our house, nothing felt safe. Love always came with conditions, and peace depended on whether my mother was in the mood to invent another teaching moment. She loved calling them lessons. If I showed any emotion, I was too weak. If I asked for help, I was useless. If I made even a small mistake, it became proof that I needed to be tougher. My father always supported her, smiling like they were playing some private game together. They never saw themselves as cruel. They talked about building character and preparing me for the real world, using big words to dress up things that just felt mean. Small moments added up over the years. They would leave me waiting alone in public places for hours, saying it would teach me independence. They laughed when I got upset, turning my tears into something they found funny. I learned early to stay quiet, stay useful, and try to become almost invisible so I wouldn't be picked for their next test. The only place I felt free was on paper. I drew all the time. Safe rooms, open roads, women walking away toward new lives. Drawing became my secret way out. The day everything finally broke happened during a supposed family trip into the city. They had been upset with me over something small from school. That morning, they acted extra cheerful, talking about a fun day together. During the drive, they kept asking me questions that made me nervous, pushing until I felt that familiar knot in my stomach. When we reached Union Station, they told me to wait by a large pillar while they parked the car and got some food. They said it would only take 15 or 20 minutes. I waited. 15 minutes passed. Then 30. Then an hour. The station was loud and crowded with strangers rushing everywhere. I had only a few dollars in my pocket and no phone. Panic started rising in my chest. I kept telling myself they would come back any second. Then I saw our family car slowly passing right outside the front windows. My parents were inside, looking straight at me. My father had a big smile on his face, not relief, but the kind of smile you give when your joke works perfectly. My mother leaned out and called over the noise. Something like, "Let's see if you can figure out how to get home on your own." They both laughed. He gave a little thumbs up, and then the car drove away and disappeared into traffic. In that moment, my whole world shifted. It wasn't just that they left me. It was that they enjoyed it. My fear wasn't an accident, it was exactly what they wanted. I spent hours wandering inside that huge station, fighting tears, too ashamed and too scared to ask anyone for help. They had trained me well. Needing help meant weakness, and weakness would only bring more pain. I avoided police officers and stayed away from doors leading out to the city streets. A kind station worker named Maria eventually noticed me walking in circles. She spoke gently, asked if I was okay, and when I finally broke down and told her what happened, she didn't scold me or tell me to calm down. She got security involved right away. The police checked the cameras and saw the car had slowed down and left. When they called my parents, the officer's tone changed completely. He told them clearly that leaving a 12-year-old alone in a major train station wasn't any kind of lesson, and it was abandonment. That night, instead of going home, I was placed in emergency foster care. That's where I met David and Rachel Hayes. They were ordinary, warm people. He worked with photography. She taught young kids. Their house felt lived in and safe. No raised voices. No turning my tears into jokes. For the first time, adults actually protected me instead of testing me. The court case that followed was long and painful. My biological parents showed up acting offended, claiming they were just trying to make me stronger. They admitted what they had done, but refused to see anything wrong with it. The judge and therapists recognized the pattern of emotional harm that had been going on for years. In the end, my parents were given a clear choice. do the hard work required for reunification, or give up their parental rights. They chose to walk away rather than change. David and Rachel later adopted me. I took their last name and became Emma Thompson. They never rushed my healing. They gave me space, encouraged my drawing, and showed me what steady, quiet love actually looks like. No tests, no bets, no conditions. I threw myself into art and later graphic design. Years later, I moved to Denver, started my own small studio, met my husband, and built a calm life far from Illinois. Thought the past was finally buried. Until those 29 missed calls came in. The voicemail wasn't from my mother. It was from my younger sister, Hannah. I hadn't heard her voice in almost 20 years. She sounded older now, tired, like life had been heavy on her too. She told me our mother had advanced cancer and wasn't doing well. Our father had suffered a stroke a few months earlier. The family shops had closed one by one. Customers stopped coming after old. Stories started spreading around town and online. Someone had posted about what happened that day at the train station, and everything they had built fell apart fast. Neighbors turned away. Friends went quiet. The perfect image they worked so hard to show the world finally cracked. Now they were living in a small apartment, scared of facing the end alone. Hannah said they kept asking for me, not because they had changed or felt real regret, but because they had run out of options. She told me she had cut contact with them herself after she became a mother and read the old court papers. Seeing the truth in black and white made her realize she could never let her own child near people like that. She called me because she didn't want to lie. She wanted me to know the real reason behind all those missed calls. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time that night. Phone in my hand, my dog Max pressed warm against my leg. My husband Alex didn't push me. He just said quietly, "You don't owe them anything." Emma. My adoptive parents, David and Rachel, told me the same thing when I called them. Whatever I decided had to be for my own peace, not to ease their guilt. I thought about that scared little girl in the station, the one who waited and hoped even after the car drove away. I thought about all the years I spent building a life where I no longer had to disappear to feel safe. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I wasn't flying back to forgive them or to save them. I was going back to finally speak the truth in my own voice and close the door for good. 2 days later, I landed in Chicago and drove to the hospital. The room smelled of disinfectant and fear. My father looked smaller than I remembered, older, like the stroke and the shame had stripped away the man who used to smile at my pain. My mother still tried to hold herself together, even lying in that bed, but her face looked tired behind the mask of strength she always wore. For a few seconds, nobody spoke. Then my mother's eyes filled with tears and she whispered my old name. I corrected her gently but firmly. "It's Emma now." She nodded, dabbing at her eyes. My father started talking about mistakes they had made, how they never meant for things to go so far. The word mistakes felt too small for what they did. A mistake is forgetting an appointment. What they did was choose to leave a terrified 12-year-old girl alone in a huge city because they thought her fear was funny. I stayed calm. I told them the truth I had carried for 20 years. They didn't just leave me that day. They enjoyed watching me panic. They turned my fear into their private game, then spent years pretending it was all for my own good. They taught me that needing help was weakness, then put me in a place where asking for help was the only way to survive. And when the court gave them a real chance to change and get me back, they chose their pride instead. They gave me up rather than admit they were wrong. My mother asked if I could ever forgive them. Her voice cracked like she expected the answer to fix everything. I looked at both of them and said forgiveness isn't something I owe to people who only reached out when their own world fell apart. I told them, "You bet on whether I could find my way home." I did, I just didn't come back to yours. The room went very quiet. My father asked if this was really goodbye. I looked straight at him and said it had been goodbye since that afternoon in Union Station. They were only now realizing it. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. The truth felt cold and clear, and for the first time it belonged to me, not to them. I walked out of that hospital room after 20 minutes and never looked back. In the parking lot, the air felt lighter. My hands were shaking, but not from anger or regret. It was the strange, quiet release that comes when something that haunted you for decades finally has an ending. You can walk away from. On the flight home to Denver, I kept thinking about that 12-year-old girl standing alone in the station. She believed being abandoned meant she was unwanted forever. She was wrong. She was only unwanted by two broken people who mistook cruelty for strength. but she was always worthy of real love. Learning that difference changed everything for me. Healing didn't happen overnight. Even after David and Rachel adopted me, my body still reacted to kindness like it might be a trap. If Rachel said she'd be back in 15 minutes, I would stand by the window until her car pulled in. If David was even a few minutes late picking me up, panic would rise fast in my chest. I hated waiting in public places. I hated the words, "I'll be right back." Therapy helped me understand those reactions. They were scars from years of living in fear. But David and Rachel never rushed me. They gave me space, encouraged my art, and showed up steadily, day after day. That quiet consistency slowly taught my nervous system that safety could be real. Art became my voice. I poured everything into drawing and later into graphic design. Moving to Denver gave me new air, new streets, and enough distance to breathe. I started my own studio, helping small businesses tell their honest stories through clean, beautiful branding. The irony always made me smile a little. The girl who grew up inside someone else's lies now helps others show who they really are. I met Alex at a friend's housewarming party. He was patient and steady in a way that didn't feel forced. When I finally told him about the train station, he didn't offer empty words or try to fix it. He just held my hand and said, "That should never have happened to you." That simple honesty meant everything. We built our life slowly, with room for truth and no tests. We got married in a small ceremony where David walked me down the aisle and Rachel fixed my dress with tears in her eyes. We adopted Max, our rescue dog, who also knew what it felt like to be left behind. Together, we created the kind of home I once only drew on paper. Walking away from my biological parents wasn't bitterness. It was the healthiest choice I ever made. Abuse doesn't turn into discipline just because someone calls it a lesson. Humiliation doesn't build character. Fear doesn't make children stronger. It only makes them older before their time. The family you're born into can leave you with wounds, but it doesn't get to write the rest of your story. Real love doesn't laugh when you're scared. Real family doesn't test whether you can survive without them. Real healing begins the moment you stop calling cruelty by softer names and face it for exactly what it was. I left that hospital without guilt. I left feeling lighter, educated by my own survival. Today I have a life full of peace. Morning walks with Max, evenings with Alex, creative work that matters to me, and Sunday calls with David and Rachel, the parents who chose me every single day. If you're watching this and carrying similar wounds, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not broken for needing safety. You are not weak for walking away from people who hurt you, even if they share your blood. You are worthy of love that doesn't test you, doesn't humiliate you, and doesn't disappear when you need it most. The little girl in the station finally found her way home. She just built a better one where fear isn't entertainment, where waiting doesn't mean abandonment, and where love stays. And that, more than anything, is the ending I never knew I could have.